Welcome, everyone. Since it is 5:30, we're going to go ahead and get started with our logistics slides, starting with our interpretation. And I'm going to pass it to Tanya from Linguística to provide those instructions.
Thank you, Liz. Buenas tardes a todos, bienvenidos a su reunión. Queremos recordarles que como siempre tenemos la interpretación simultánea disponible para ustedes, así que si ustedes ingresaron con una computadora, van a ver el icono de un mundo en la parte de abajo de su pantalla. Por favor, seleccionen ese icono y seleccionen el canal de español. También pueden silenciar el audio original para que nada más escuchen la voz del intérprete. Si ustedes ingresaron utilizando un teléfono móvil, una tableta o un iPad, sus opciones puede ser que se vean un poco diferentes. Necesitan tocar su pantalla para que aparezca el menú de los tres puntitos que dice más o more. Seleccionen ese menú y va a aparecer un menú donde dice interpretación de idioma. Selecciónenlo, luego seleccionen el canal de español. Nuevamente, silenciar el audio original. Y por último, muy importante, el botón que dice Done, listo, finalizado, terminado. Si necesitan ayuda, nos dejan saber y con gusto les ayudamos. Y ahora vamos a dar esas mismas instrucciones en inglés. Hello, everyone. Welcome to your meeting. This is just a reminder that, as usual, we are providing simultaneous interpretation for this meeting. So if you're a monolingual English speaker, we do ask you to please select the English channel. That way you will have that immediate interpretation from Spanish into English. If you're joining us with a computer, you'll see a globe at the bottom of your screen. Please click on the globe and select English. If you're joining with a cell phone or a tablet or an iPad, your options will be a bit different. You need to tap your screen and find the menu that would appear with three dots with the word more, either at the bottom or at the top of your screen. Please click on the menu, select language interpretation, select English, and then select done. If you need any help, you can let us know and we can assist you. Thank you so much. I can be added to the channel now.
Thank you, Tanya. I'm going to pause for a moment as we complete our interpretation setup. So I'll wait for a thumbs up before I move on. Okay. I see a thumbs up, so everybody should be able to select that English or Spanish interpretation channel. As your facilitators tonight, part of our role in these meetings is to work behind the scenes to take attendance, offer technical assistance, and general support to ensure that everyone is able to engage fully in tonight's meeting. So if at any point you're having trouble with Zoom or the interpretation for any reason, please don't hesitate to message any one of us, or if you're having issues with interpretation, please do interrupt the conversation by unmuting yourself so that we can help troubleshoot. I'm going to continue to move through our introduction slides, and here we have our renaming conventions. We do this because it helps with our attendance tracking and stipend distribution process. So for our CSC members tonight, we ask that you put the letters CSC in your Zoom name. And for residents who are part of the stipend program, please put the letter R. And you might see one of us changing your Zoom name if you are not able to tonight. For all others who are attending tonight's meeting, if you are joining as a representative of an agency, please do put that agency name in your Zoom name. And for those who are joining as members of the public, we also ask that you indicate that in your Zoom name by putting the letter P, as this helps us track who to call on during our public comment periods. And on this slide, we have our virtual meeting etiquette. We ask for folks to stay muted unless you are speaking. And if you are calling in on the phone, you can press *6 to mute and unmute. If you have a question or comment, we also ask that you raise your Zoom hand. And if you are calling in on the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And just a final reminder here for residents in the stipend program, we ask that you stay on for at least 75% of the meeting to be eligible for that stipend. On this slide, we have a review of our group agreements. Hopefully these feel pretty familiar to folks and we are comfortable with these, so we won't go through each one tonight, but we do ask that you just take a moment to review and keep these in mind as we are facilitating tonight's meeting. And on this last slide I have here is our agenda. We will move to our welcome and introductions in a moment, and then we'll transition to our air monitoring update, and then we will have our SERP implementation progress update before we move to our usual standing updates, and then talk about some next steps and agenda setting, and then have our final public comment. So I will stop sharing my screen and just want to welcome everybody once more to our 76th South Central Fresno Community Steering Committee meeting. My name is Liz and I'm joined here tonight by my co-facilitator, Amy. We are very grateful to all of you for taking the time to be here tonight to continue advancing this important work, especially now that we've transitioned to these quarterly instead of monthly meetings, where the Air District is committed to continuing to provide these quarterly air monitoring updates and get CSC input on recent SERP implementation efforts. And at this time, I'm happy to officially move us into our welcome by inviting Ryan from the Air District to share some opening remarks.
Thanks, Liz. Good evening, everyone. Happy to have you here today. And I think we worked hard to bring some really good updates to everybody. Excited for everybody, the presentations that we're going to have. And I'm sure the thoughtful feedback that we're going to receive from all of you and discussing the various items. And so thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ryan. This is Liz, and at this time, I'm happy to transition us to our next agenda item, which is our regular quarterly air monitoring update. The Air District is going to share some recent data collected in the community. And as you listen, we really encourage you to think not just about the numbers, but about what they mean for you and whether they reflect what you're experiencing day to day. So if anything feels unclear, feels missing, or raises questions or concerns, this is definitely the right time to raise that. And for this presentation, we do ask that everyone holds their questions until the end of the presentation, just to help make sure that we get through all of the data and content. And so with that, I'm happy to pass it over to the Air District, and I think Chai is going to start us off.
All right, thanks, Liz. Good evening, everybody. Good to see you all tonight. So we have an update for the fourth quarter of 2025, and we'll also be looking at a longer term, 5-year look back and update on that as well. And so we have Sean Smith here. He's the air quality technician that's taking instrument technician that's overseeing and doing all the maintenance for all of the air monitors, community air monitors here in Fresno. So he'll be providing that update tonight. Go for it, Sean.
Awesome. Thank you, Chai. Can everyone hear me? Good? Okay. Just wanted to check. So as Chai mentioned, my name is Sean Smith. I'm one of the air quality instrument technicians that works on the air quality instruments that you see throughout the valley and that gathers the data for the Air District. And then today we'll be going through the update on the South Central Fresno Community Air Monitoring Program, and specifically for the fourth quarter, which is October to December of 2025. Slide, please. So air monitoring update, we're going to be going over the status of the community air monitoring plan implementation. We're going to review the air monitoring data collected, and then we'll have a period of time that we can go over any questions, comments, or recommendations for the community air monitoring team. Slide, please. So the camp team has been able to fully deploy all the air quality instruments that we had planned out for the South Central Fresno community. Here's a map depicting the various air quality instruments that we have throughout this region. There's 8 sites total, various different types of monitors. So we have PM 2.5 monitors, We also have mobile monitoring through the air quality vans, which aren't depicted on this slide, but we'll show it in the next couple slides. We also have compact air quality systems called air pointers that can do multi-gas as well as the PM 2.5. And then we also have a trailer that's at Malaga that can do various gases and PM 2.5. And then for your reference, we also have the Foundry and Drummond regulatory sites. They're not part of the camp team instrumentation, but they're there just for your reference of where their locations are approximately inside that South Central Fresno region. Slide, please. So these are the types of instruments that we use on a day-to-day basis for the air quality monitoring. On the left side, we have a BAM 1022 specifically, and that's depicted in the left image there. In the central image, we have air pointer as well as one of the BAM 1022s. They're co-located, and that can do the PM 2.5 as well as the multi-gas speciation. And then on the right side, we have the air quality mobile trailer that we use for multi-gas, and it can also gather some meteorological data as well. Slide, please. Depicted here is our mobile air quality van. It's shared between the different AB 617 sites. And we take it, if you see us out on the road, we're probably doing air monitoring in your community. We're taking it to another AB 617 community. We utilized it during the month of January, and we will be presenting some of that data here for the 2 times that we monitored this January. Slide, please. So we have ongoing community air monitoring. We've completely implemented all the sites for the Fresno community and have put out all the monitors that we were planning to put out for the South Central Fresno community. And we fully deployed that network. We have also, at the request of the community, monitored with that mobile air quality monitoring van. Specifically, it's been at Edison and west of the Edison air monitoring, the stationary monitoring site. And then finally, we continue to seek CSC recommendations and analysis for our air quality monitoring and data presentation. Slide, please. So in this presentation, there's going to be an air monitoring update summary. Over the last 6 years, we've been seeing improving air quality within not only the South Central Fresno region, but also the valley-wide. In 2025, the PM 2.5 annual average was similar to previous years, and the 2025 quarterly 2.5 levels were lower than previous years. As mentioned, we van monitored twice in the Edison High School area, and we noted that the PM 2.5 values were very similar to the stationary site that's nearby. And then finally, monitoring data. I realize I might have an unstable internet connection. Do you guys hear me? Okay, sorry, I was just checking. So it was saying that my internet's slow. So anyways, we have that air monitoring data available on our website through the community portal. Slide, please. So here in this slide, we have the annual average PM 2.5 data for the past 6 years since the community air monitoring was started. And we've noticed that the general trend is that the air quality is getting better, improving over the last 6 years since we've started. It's a bar graph that on the left side, you'll see the concentration of PM 2.5, and then on the x-axis, you'll see the respective year that each bar reflects. And then in the bar graph, you'll see that there's the 1997 annual federal health-based standard, which is depicted in the blue dashed line. You'll see the green dashed line, which is the 2012. So it's been lowered from 15 to 12. And then finally, the 2024 annual federal health-based standard, which is now 9 micrograms per meter cubed. And each year from 2020 to 2025, we see a general trend downward from higher PM 2.5 levels to lower PM 2.5 levels, which is very important because the air quality affects us all. And the worse that the air quality is, it can be affecting people who are of sensitive groups. We've noticed that it increased the risk for heart disease. For people who are sensitive, they typically have respiratory ailments like asthma, and it can even be attributed to premature death. So it's very important that we continue this mission. And at the district, we're trying to meet the new federal base standard. Slide, please. So the good news is each year it progressively gets better. As I mentioned, it's been a record year for the Air District. There's two metrics that we look at, or two of the metrics that we could say that are very beneficial is the number of air quality days in the unhealthy region have been reduced, and it's depicted in this slide here. The years are on the bottom on the x-axis, reflecting from the period of 2020 to 2025. And then we have the number of days respective for each category. So as you can see, in the good, moderate, unhealthy for sensitive groups, unhealthy, very unhealthy, and hazardous, more and more days from the period of 2020 to the period of 2025 are reflective of that. That's good or moderate. And we've reduced the number of unhealthy for sensitive groups, unhealthy, very unhealthy, and hazardous. Just to give you some specific numbers, compared to 2024, 2025 has had only 3 unhealthy for sensitive groups, 3 of those days, and then it's had 0 unhealthy or very unhealthy or hazardous days. So we've actually been able to reduce the number of days in those unhealthy categories. Slide, please. So this slide depicts the annual average comparison, and we have our community air monitoring sites for PM 2.5 on the left-hand side. And then for reference, we also have the regulatory air monitoring sites as just a reference. Concentrations depicted on the left side, and then on the bottom we have each specific site, and then the respective year is pictured in different colors. And what we can see is 2025 reflects that of previous years, and the general trend for the valley is that the air quality is improving and getting closer to the annual federal health-based standard, which is depicted in the gray dashed line that goes horizontally across the graph. Next slide, please. So now we've looked at the bird's eye view of the entire year. This slide is very similar, but instead of it being the entire year, it's just the quarter average comparison. And in Q4 of the Fresno sites, we had all community air monitoring sites lower than the previous year, which was 2024. And they're slowly getting closer to that annual federal health-based standard. And the concentrations depicted on the left-hand side for your reference. And then it's also compared to the nearby regulatory sites, which are reflecting that as well, the general trend towards that 9 micrograms per meter cubed. Next slide, please. So we've gone from annual to quarterly, and then now we have the monthly average comparison. And for the monthly average comparison, we noticed that some of the PM 2.5 concentrations actually increased a little bit in the winter months, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But this chart is slightly different than the previous ones. You have the sites depicted in different colors versus each year. So this is specifically only looking at Q4 data for each site, and it basically we've averaged it for each month. And so concentrations on the left-hand side, and it shows each month on the x-axis, and then we put them into bins of October, November, and December. Now, what we realize is part of the reason that the air quality got a little bit worse for the November and December, it's slightly elevated in the PM 2.5 is because we noticed that there was a period of stagnation. We had high pressure and colder temps, which results in denser air. and there wasn't as much airflow, and so it doesn't move that air mass out, and so we see elevated PM levels. You may also notice that that period of time, starting around late November to mid-December, we had a period of 22 days straight, consecutive days where we had dense fog, also known as Tule fog, and it resulted in not only poor air quality but poor visibility. And we have a slide on that as well coming up that I can show you as well. Next slide, please. So for this slide, we've gone from a year, an annual average, and then now we're looking at the daily average for the entire quarter. So we're taking the average of each site for the day, and then we basically show each site depicted in the different colors in a line graph instead of a bar graph. And we're comparing it concentration to each day. So each of the different colored lines is one of the respective sites, also compared to the the regulatory sites. And then you'll notice in the background as well, there's a gray shaded area. That's the previous year's maximum, the site that basically had the worst air quality for the community. And we're comparing that to the data of 2025. So put more simply is basically we're comparing our current year's averages to the last year's kind of maximum, which is the gray shaded area behind it. And the other colors you'll see layered in the background are the respective air quality categories. So you'll have good and green. Yellow is the moderate category. Orange is the unhealthy for sensitive groups, and the red is unhealthy. And then we don't even get into the very unhealthy or hazardous for 2024 or 2025. What you'll notice is in 2025, there's only 3 days roughly where we actually break the 24-hour health-based standard. And then in 2024, we had about 7 days where we were above in the very unhealthy, we were in the unhealthy for sensitive groups, and only 3 days where we were in the unhealthy category. So the air quality for the most part has been under that 24-hour health-based standard. Next slide, please. So as promised, at the request of the CSC, we went out and took the van to do van monitoring, and we went west of the Edison High School stationary monitor. And the first time we monitored was approximately at Florence and Fruit Avenue, and that was on January 1st near Hyde Park, which is the green area that's near the middle of the, on the left side of the satellite image here. So we took the van and monitored for 7 hours, and what we noticed is in the top area where it says van located at Fruit and Florence Avenue, we noticed that the van data depicted in red is very similar to the Edison monitor, and basically trended with it, and both sites were under the 24-hour health-based standard. And we went and on the 21st, a couple weeks later, and took it to Church and Arthur, which is a little bit north of that location. The major cross streets are Cesar Chavez and Fruit Avenue. And we noticed the same thing, that both sites, the Edison stationary monitor and the van, were both under the 24-hour health-based standard. And the slight elevation in PM in the early morning hours could possibly be attributed to road traffic that is along that area. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, with the elevated PM levels in the valley, the Air District did issue a statement regarding the stagnant weather conditions in the winter. That November to December period, we had 22 consecutive days of Tule fog, which is very thick and congested the valley for those several weeks. And it ended up totaling 30 days in all of dense Tule fog, as you see depicted on the NASA satellite imagery here. And on the right side, we have Caltrans visibility along the highway cams, showing how dense that fog can actually be. And what it does is basically traps that air quality within the valley and leads to worsening air quality conditions. nonetheless, overall, the air quality averages for the year were a lot better than 2024 and are trending down. Um, so with that, are there any questions or comments or any recommendations for the community air monitoring program? I see Natalie Delgado. Go ahead.
Oh, hey, Sean, thanks for your presentation. I do have one question. I know that like for the when you went to monitor Edison like with the van, like it was
Mhm.
attributed to like on-road traffic. I just have a question. Like, do you know by any chance if it's like an influx of heavy duty trucks or if it's just like personal vehicles? Like, is there any way like to find out?
We don't know for sure if it's a possibility that it could be due to roadside emissions, but we can't specifically say for certain what species of like car is emitting it. I was out there both of those days and looking around. There are some larger trucks going along those roads, but there's also a lot of just normal traffic that we see of just normal cars along that area. But the monitors themselves can't differentiate between the two different types of vehicles. It just picks up a specific amount of particulate matter and then measures it.
Yeah, and also something to keep in mind is that you see like all these sites here, they're all well below even the 24-hour health-based standard. So these are all still pretty low from a 24-hour perspective. And in addition to that, if you look at it, it is, although at that time, like right around 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning, it may be a bit higher than at Edison. But after that, you can see that, they match up around 11 and then they both drop down from 1 or 2 o'clock. So we were just suspecting that it could possibly be at that time, maybe a little bit more traffic over there, but it's not anything that's significantly different from anywhere else.
Yeah, and just maybe kind of taking it back to the last meeting when we were talking about this and the concerns that were raised uh, by the CSC, that there was a general feeling due to some of the sources in those areas that there may be higher readings in those areas. And with the taking the van out on different days, we were really looking to see if there were spikes in that area that would be reflective of maybe um, a, maybe a source component to leading to increased emissions. And at least this initial look at it, we're not seeing that, which I think is a good thing. This was done during the week, where businesses are operating, and so if there were spikes, we think we would have seen them on these days. But this is why it's important, and it's good for the community steering committee to provide recommendations on areas where they think there may be an impact, and so that we can go out and take a look at that.
Anyone else? And I should ask, did that answer your question, by the way? Sorry, I didn't give you a chance to respond either for if that was sufficient. The
Hi, yeah, it was helpful and yeah, I think it's just still interesting to like not really know like what's causing that spike, if it's like just trucks or the cars. But yeah, it's just hard to differentiate, I think, with the monitors, like what you said. So thank you.
Yeah, and it is ambient monitoring, so we're not going to be able to pick out a specific one. It's supposed to be just a sample of what the air quality is generally at large. So we can't pick up a specific vehicle or not, unfortunately.
The only thing maybe, and I'm just throwing this out there. There may be an ability, I don't know what the traffic volume is. I mean, if it's hundreds of vehicles, that may be more challenging. If it's 20, 30 vehicles, maybe it's more doable, but maybe doing some level of like vehicle counting. So how many like personal vehicles, how many trucks in a given time, what time frame. And so that way, if at 10 o'clock, on the 21st, we see, 20 heavy duty vehicles, and then maybe at 12 o'clock, we only see five. Or, we see, 50 residential vehicles at 10, and we only see, 30 between, 12 and 1, something like that.
Mhm.
And also to keep in mind is that, like for example, if we're comparing to Edison, it's farther away from the street, whereas the van is right on the street. So this doesn't really indicate that there's more traffic at those locations versus at Edison High School either. It's just that the van is just so much closer to that source versus where all these other all these other sites, they are farther away from the street.
Mhm. Any other questions, comments, recommendations for the camp team?
Yeah, thank you. I had one question. Did you say that in 2025, there were no days where it was unhealthy for sensitive populations? Zero.
Sorry, that was a misspeak. What I meant to say is it's unhealthy for sensitive groups. There were 3 days. Yeah, thank you. So this chart depicts it here. It's kind of hard to see exactly how many days, so we counted them. I have a chart here on the side. In 2024, the unhealthy for sensitive days was 7, whereas in 2025, the unhealthy for sensitive groups days was only 3. And then for the unhealthy category, for 2024, we only had 3 days. And then for 2025, in the unhealthy category, we had 0 days. So we had that little blip on the 6th, roughly through the 9th. There were those 3 days that peaked into the unhealthy for sensitive groups, but it never crossed over into the unhealthy category. So I apologize for the miscommunication there. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
I actually was referring to a bar graph that you had up that's
Yeah, it's the other
Oh,
slides.
oh, the other one.
The other
Okay.
slide. Yes.
2025.
I believe
Move
it's
on.
slide 9, if I'm not mistaken. This one here. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
this
Right.
one.
So in 2025, you're saying there were no days that measured at the level of unhealthy at all. None. Zero.
Yeah, it looks like there's a sliver on the top, but it was only, at least for the community
Oh,
monitors, we
Sean,
Kind of
had.
breaking up.
yeah,
Oh,
sorry, you were
I'm sorry.
breaking up. Could you repeat that?
Okay. Yeah, sorry. I'll just start over. I realize I probably have a poor internet connection. I apologize. Um, so at the very top here, you're referring to the 2025 here. It probably looks like there's a slight red sliver here, but for the community air monitoring uh, sensors, we only had for 2025 the 3 days that were in the unhealthy for sensitive categories and none for the unhealthy category.
Yeah, actually, there's a slight little sliver up there
If it's
of
super small,
one day for 2025. And yeah, and again, just keep in mind that this is strictly from all of the community monitors within the South Central Fresno area. So there could possibly be some unhealthy days if we look at the entire Central Valley or all around Fresno, including all of the regulatory monitors. So this is just focusing just on the community monitors within South Central Fresno.
Well, I think what it's saying is there was 3 days that were in the orange, which is unhealthy for sensitive. Whereas, yeah, in 2024, you can barely see it, but there's like a little red line at the very top of 2024, which is unhealthy.
Yeah.
I see Ivanka has her hand up.
oh, sorry, go ahead, Ivanka.
Thanks, Sean, for this presentation. Sean, what is the department that you're in at the Air District?
I'm part of the community air monitoring team.
Okay, so the community air monitoring team that we're used to, you show up here to give us feedback on this data.
Mhm.
But how and who in your department of the air monitoring, when, how often are you actually in communication giving this information to the department of the air district that approves air permits to heavy and light industrial businesses that are in the 617 area? So to the community members on this call,
Mhm.
the reason I'm asking this question is because this information is probably a lot of details that we're not used to seeing on a regular basis. Thank you for giving it to us. It sounds good. It sounds like we're making improvements, but it's still very general. We appreciate that you took the monitors to the Edison area because that is what CSC members said, hey, are we seeing any spikes around the Edison High School in that West Fresno area? But your department should still be responsible for having regular communications without the CSC members having to tell you to be in communication with the Department of the Air District that is allowing for permits to go to industrial businesses that are placing themselves in already high overburdened air quality areas within a 617 area. So I'm explaining it not for your benefit as much as for the community members that are my team members on this committee. This information does not help the community unless it's being placed in the areas that are most important to the impact. And what we're seeing is the reason we were chosen for 617 is we were already maxed out in air burdens, more than other parts of the whole Central Valley. So that question is, this leads back to land use decisions, communication with the city, and I need the CSC members, community members to understand that the Air District is responsible for reviewing anything that comes from the planning department from the city of Fresno. It has to have a check mark given and approved by the Air District. So how is this information that we're looking at right now, that you are very expert in understanding the data, how is that communicated to the department who decides, oh yeah, it's okay, we can give another air permit to Central Transport trucking project? It hasn't made it to city council yet, but it's worked its way through the planning department. It's worked its way through the planning commission. So therefore, it has come across the desk of the air district to get a stamp of approval for an air permit. That air permit, if it has an approval, where from your department are you saying maybe that shouldn't be the best place to place that, because look at the data that our air monitors are always collecting? Does everyone see the connection here that's most important that's being ignored? And I really need residents that are on this call and steering committee members that are the residents to understand that while this is a great presentation, how is it really helping the AB 617 community as a whole? So back to the question for Sean or Chai or whoever else from the Air District that's on the call. What is the responsible, what is the responsible accountability from one department of the Air District to the other? Or do you just not communicate and you stay siloed? Does that make sense? What I'm talking about? Okay.
Definitely. And I think looks like Ryan has his hand up, so I'll let him go.
Yeah, I'll try and res respond to your questions, statements, comments, Ivanka. It is a very complex, and I know you're one of the most experienced people on this call in regards to land use and how things work their way through the different agencies, whether it's city, county, us. As an agency, yeah, we look at all the air quality data. We try to understand what it's showing. The way that we use that in providing feedback to the cities and counties. So you mentioned the specific project. That one, doesn't require a permit with the district. They didn't have any equipment at the facility that requires air district permits. Had it had a permit, then yeah, we take a look at how that will impact where the receptors are in relation to that facility. We do things that are called health risk assessments based on the types of equipment that's being proposed. We do assessments on the toxics, the cancer risk associated with pieces of equipment. All that goes into any permitting action that we take. In regards to projects that we don't have direct authority over, but as a commenting agency for CEQA and other things, we are tasked with evaluating, is there a significant air quality impact associated with that operation or that facility? And when there are, and there are situations where that happens, then we provide recommendations to them on ways to reduce those emissions from those facilities to get them under levels where it wouldn't be a significant impact. But yes, there's communication going on between all of our departments all the time.
Okay, so maybe you don't think that's the best project, but let me just describe the project that's happening in 617 again. This is a truck transport that is diagonally across the street from Orange Elementary School, correct? It will have gassing, it will have maintenance, and it will have incoming trucks. And while they're not stationary and they are mobile, they still produce all the PM 2.5 that could be collected, right? So without community saying to you, place the monitor, place the trailer, the van in these spaces, when is the air district placing them without being told by somebody? And when is the last time an air permit was actually denied versus we're giving recommendations that we know are ignored? And so it's just a green light pass process over and over again. And then we as a community are supposed to accept these little incremental decreases over the last 5 years, right? Like, let's just be honest and be real. There is opportunity for the air district to be more involved if you really want to see decreases. I don't think the air district is even trying to be creative and thinking about how can we make monumental decreases in an area that we know the PM 2.5 is only increasing because this city wants that area to be the industrial zone and only expand to be more industrialized, right? So you're saying that this project doesn't really need an air permit, but it's definitely a project that needs to be monitored. It's across from a school, right? Like anything in Southwest and South Central that's in this boundary, you can see a lot of space and opportunity that these monitors could be going to collect real data besides the stationary monitor. I'm talking about the van and the trailer that could collect information that shouldn't have to wait on the community to tell you to collect that information. And then when you want to, like, you may not say that, it's not that I need an answer from you, Ryan. We need to just speak about what is actually happening. I don't expect you to have the answers, right? You don't have to off the fly have an answer. It's just that these are the types of things that need to be addressed as a whole.
Thank you, Ivanka. This is Liz. So it sounds like I'm hearing that, this presentation might be a really great foundation that we've established where the Air District is collecting all of this data and establish a process to share that with the CSC. But as we look forward to how this work maybe continues beyond this time, you're wondering what more is and can the Air District do to get more data points to be constantly evaluating like these, changes in land use that you're raising. And I hear that you're not necessarily asking for a question or for an answer from Ryan tonight, and it seems like we probably won't get one, but this can definitely be a topic that we continue to revisit in this space. And I do recognize the importance. And I see a hand up from Dr. Curry, and then after we will, I think, try to wrap up before we transition to our next agenda item. But go ahead, Dr. Curry.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know that what I heard from Ivanka was asking for some relevant data points, but I also heard a question about what is the role that the air control district is willing to play, and will you provide the data in a way that helps shape land use decisions based on what communities need? So the AB 617 South Central area has already been determined as having poor air quality. That's a given. That's why we're here. So I guess what I'm hearing is, given that that's a fact, and these projects come before Planning Commission, they come before City Council, they ultimately do impact the communities that they are placed in, and they're not in North Fresno. They're in West Fresno, Southwest Fresno, Southeast Fresno. So what is the position of the air control district in terms of your willingness to provide the data in a way that actually speaks for the community based on what we already know, based on the fact that we're heavily polluted in these areas, and whether or not the data that you have will actually be provided in a way that shapes something in the future, as opposed to allowing the same process of locating these facilities, these industrial sites, into the places that are already overburdened. So I hear two questions. One is, will you get data points that reflect what's happening specifically on specific projects? And two, will you then weigh in with sharing the information in a way that helps inform decision makers about why this would not be a good place for adding additional pollution burden? And I don't know that that's what you believe the air control district is designed to do, whether or not you see that as a public benefit. But again, that would be the question to me: is we have data points, we have the information. What are you willing to do in order to speak for the public?
I can tell you, and there may be disagreements on our position on this. Over the last 6+ years that we've been working with all of you on this, I think there's been a significant change that we approach the way that we communicate, the way that we comment on projects, the guidance and the recommendations that we provide to land use agencies in response to proposed projects. When there are projects that are going in areas that are of concern to the community, those are things that we raise directly to those agencies as well. We share the community feedback that we received, verbally, written during CSC meetings. We're constantly looking to elevate the concerns that we're hearing here. In regards to air pollution, like the data that we're collecting, if you kind of go back and you look at the information that Sean is showing, I don't know if the data is going to be as supportive as, it's not significantly different than at least this data. I'm not saying there's not other data out there that could be provided, but I don't know if this is going to be the data that's going to say, this is why something can't happen here. And I'm just trying to be 100% honest. I'm not trying to sidestep the points that have been made in any way. I'm just trying to share what this specific data shows. I think we in terms of our efforts, I think it's not status quo. I think what hinders not just us, but any public agency is we're also required, like we have requirements that we have to abide by. I think if you asked a lot of Air District personal opinions or thoughts on certain things, they would just feel very strongly and want to do certain things, but in terms of as an agency we are also limited in our ability to do certain things. And like, in terms of like a permit, if a facility wants to go in a certain place and it passes all the requirements, that is probably a situation where we can't say no. Like there's legal challenges, there's legal requirements that we are given that we have to abide by. We can't just pick and choose when we abide by the legal mandates. And but the way that we have gone about it these last 6 years are considering the concerns that have been raised, and talking with cities and county land use agencies about the projects and the concerns. And I know they're taking that back, and they're also having conversations with project proponents. And I think there have been projects that have been proposed that ultimately didn't go in these different places. But it's not something that we could bring back here and say, hey, by the way, all these different projects didn't move forward in this area.
This is Liz. Thank you for the questions, and thank you, Ryan, for the honesty that you're approaching the questions with. I think it speaks to how important this cross-agency collaboration is, and even if this data might be advancing the change that you all hope to see right now, data is still, an important part of this process and could be used in other ways as well. So definitely encourage everyone to continue your advocacy efforts and, continue to push through these often very frustrating, bureaucratic inefficiencies, as some might call them. But again, appreciate all the questions and Ryan, your response. I'm just looking at the time, and we are a little bit over our air monitoring presentation. I know there were maybe a few slides left, but I think we can close that out for tonight, as I know that we have another important update and some representatives from Fresno Unified School District here tonight. So with that said, I'll just say thank you again to the air monitoring team, Chai, Sean, and all of your team here. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate your guys' time and hanging tight with the internet issues. I apologize about that.
No problem. Thank you, Sean. Okay, so transitioning us to this next item, that is an implementation update on the Community Emissions Reduction Program, your CERP, specifically around electric school buses, and if we have time, some tractor replacement projects, really continuing our conversation from last quarter's meeting. And at that last meeting, we heard feedback and concerns related to clarifying the routes for the electric school buses and a desire to hear updates on that before the CSC can move forward with decisions related to other CERT measures. So tonight, as Ryan will share in a moment, we will hear some updates from the representatives from the Fresno Unified School District regarding some of their recent implementation progress on determining those bus routes and getting those buses driving within the boundary. Again, we will ask for our CSC members to hold your questions until the end of the update, and we will still have plenty of time for your questions and discussion. So I'll pass it to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Liz. All right. Hopefully everybody can see the screen. Let me get my chat up. All right. All right, so we have a lot of updates, so I'm going to try to go through some of the initial slides pretty quickly. They are kind of a recap of what was presented during the last meeting a little bit, but there's a lot of new updates as well. in terms of like the goals of the emission, we had specific funding levels that were provided for the different types of measures, and then we expected to get certain emissions reductions from that. And so that's what this table here shows that we went over quite a bit last time, in terms of our progress for the different types, whether it was business measures, community government measures, and then residential measures. There were several that we've been successful in completing the measures altogether, meaning that the entirety of the incentive funding has been committed. And for this conversation, it's focused more on the incentive side. And so here's the dollar amounts that were allocated for those specific measures that have been fully implemented. So overall, this is about $20 million in commitments that have been fully contracted and are currently either completed or in the process of being completed. Kind of going back to when we initially developed this method of sharing out information, the different types of categories, kind of going back to October 24. The CSC had recommended to the district that we needed to think of a new way in which to bring updates on where we're at in tracking progress of implementing measures, especially with the focus of how we may need to reallocate funding, where we're at, really from the desire of the CSC to know where we're at with individual measures, where we're having success, where we're having challenges, and then looking to bring recommendations to you on options outside of what we're already considering, or when we've had situations where we're seeing programs doing really well, and those pose opportunities for then moving funding from different measures to more successful ones. And so we developed this 3-category system. And so we're going to kind of go through where we're at with the different categories and recommendations. So like the yellow categories, these are measures where we're seeing a lot of interest and need, and we're going to recommend to continue to fund those through 2027. Category 2, we've spent a lot of time and effort, and we've brought progress updates on these measures to the CSC. And for a whole host of reasons, we're not seeing the interest in these measures, and so looking to bring possible opportunities to shift funding. And then category 3 is the last one. And so it's for measures with evidence of interest and need, looking to move funding to categories 2 and 1. So that's the kind of the reiterating the points that I made. So category 1, these are the ones that we're still seeing a lot of interest in, passenger vehicle replacement. We still have over $3 million. Remember, this started at over 8 million. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of interest in this, and we're seeing a lot of success in getting people into new vehicles. Residential air filtration, we're right about 558,000 so far that we've been able to purchase and get new devices in people's homes, which is exciting because it's a great mitigation measure in reducing air pollution within people's homes. Residential vehicle repair, we still have about $700,000 left. Wood burning devices, we have 1.5 million left. And then this last one, yard trucks and truck refrigeration units. We had been having conversations with a few facilities in the area about opportunities. And unfortunately, we just received some information over the last couple of days that it's not looking like the people that had expressed interest are going to be moving forward. And so it was on the category 1 here. Due to some of the timing of the slides, we weren't able to move this to a different one, but for the conversation, we're going to look to recommend shifting that funding. So this kind of goes back through. What we're going to do with category one. So these are the majority of them are residential incentive measures. Once again, seeing success, and we want to continue to work on this through February 2027. And we're hoping and working with you and increasing our outreach efforts, working with you on additional opportunities to increase awareness. We believe we'll be able to fund those measures. I really want to appreciate Paul Rosencrans and Chris Mudio, who are here from Fresno Unified. Last time we brought this item, there were still some questions, concerns in regards to the electric school buses and what those routes were going to look like. And so we did receive an update from them, and they're here tonight to give an update. So I won't cover this slide, but I'll turn it over to Paul and Chris to provide that update to you.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. I'm Paul Rosencrans. I'm the Director of Transportation. And with me is Chris. Christopher Zamudio is our operations supervisor. He's the person that's responsible for designing the routes each year. So I'll kind of turn it over to him a little bit later. Before I get started, I want to say we've heard your concerns very, very clearly. We truly hear you. My team recognizes that your community carries a disproportionate burden when it comes to air pollution, and that it deserves special focus, care, and action. So we're excited to have our electric buses. These 6 it's the beginning of our program. I think the last time that I presented, we were still testing them out, but basically I was just kind of telling you all of the problems that we were having and why it was taking so long. So we're excited to be able to give this update today. Kind of for the first time, we're like feel like it's actually moving for us. So just a bit of background. You guys awarded us enough funds to buy 6 electric buses. And when we had those, that allowed us to crush 6 of our oldest buses all the way back to like 1999. So those buses are already crushed and removed from our streets. We're happy to report that. Why the update now? What's different since the last update? Our charging stations is finally complete. Early February, I think 2 weeks ago, we were able to commission the charging stations. So now, for the first time, we can fully use the buses. We can charge them, and we can really test the real-world range. When we plan for electric buses, it's a little different than a diesel bus. We have to give special care to the range of the bus, like how far it's going to go before it needs to be charged again, the charging time, how much time it takes to charge it, and then, of course, the route distance itself. So we got to redesign those routes very carefully to make sure that they're still reliable for students, and we're not going to leave students stranded somewhere if a bus runs out of electricity or something like that. We're happy. We understand that running the buses in your neighborhoods means 0 tailpipe emissions. There's no diesel exhaust near schools or our bus stops. It's cleaner air. They're also very quiet. So just even for the mental health of the students, the electric buses are better. They're quiet, and it's a more peaceful ride. It helps our students get to school, I think, in a better mindset, ready to learn. It's definitely a direct health benefit to our students. Before I turn it over to Chris, let me talk just a little bit about how the drivers bid on a bus. So drivers bid on a bus by seniority, and once they bid on a bus, they keep that bus until a new one comes up, and the senior people will bid the bus. So the newest bus, people are excited about those, and people have been asking us, when can they bid on the EV buses? We have not bid those out yet because when drivers bid on routes, that's done every year. So you get to keep your bus, but every year we have to adjust the routes a little bit based on student needs. So students maybe move. Some of the routes require adjustments. I might need an extra bus at this stop, or I can take one from another stop. So because those routes kind of change, we're designing specific routes so that we can target your community with the EV buses. But let me turn it over to Chris. I think he has some maps to show us so you can really see what we're talking about, how the routes are built. But Chris, if you kind of tell them, what is it that we're doing differently? Every year we do our routes and they're generally close to the same. But this year you're planning on something different. Can you show the maps, Chris, and maybe talk us through what the plan is for next year, for next school year?
Absolutely. Thank you, Paul. Hello, team. Some of the challenges that we continuously kind of run through is the size of our district and the amount of magnet schools that we provide services. We have over 15 magnet schools that we provide services throughout our whole district. And when we talk about range, we talk about traveling from potentially one end of Fresno to the other side. So some of the things that we're looking into really kind of hammering into next year is tiering, having a better tiered system on our routes that we could target the 617 boundaries and putting together some routes that would be specialized for this boundary or this region. I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of our current routes that we kind of are in process of thinking about putting these routes together. That way it can be specialized in these areas. And as I open these maps, I'll go ahead and kind of walk us through of what we're looking at on this map.
Zamudio, I am so sorry. I do not mean to be disrespectful and interrupt you. And thank you for coming to talk to us tonight. But I feel that the Air District has put not only the community and Fresno Unified and your departments at a major disadvantage, because everything that you two have just stated right now is as if you have moved forward into these plans without a true understanding of when you took the money for these buses, how these buses were supposed to be used. It appears by what you are telling to us, very triggering, two things that you have just said. Bidding on buses based on seniority, that has nothing to do with the priority of where these buses are supposed to be, because this money is supposed to stay within the AB 617 boundary. I'm not talking about the technicality of where the bus gets plugged in, but that piece about seniority has nothing to do with these 6 buses, number one. Number two, the next triggering thing that you said was talking about magnet schools. We know that magnet schools have never been catered to the students who are facing the most overburdened conditions. And our schools in our district, including Edison, are the schools that only rank 0 or 1 out of 10. So those two things right now has just set me off, because you have been given a disservice by this Air District to allow you to think that this was free money and free buses coming to a school district, and that there were no major attachments to this. So while you came here to give us a presentation about a plan, it is a plan that did not include the engagement of the residents on this call who know this community best in the 617 boundary. So right now, Air Districts, stop. Community Steering Committee members on this call, I really need you to speak up, because you and I both know, we all know, that the whole point of 617 is that this funding was supposed to stay not only in this boundary, but is supposed to truly be guided by the committee members and the residents on this call. And what you guys are coming forward to present, it is no disrespect to you, Fresno Unified. My students are part of this family, okay? But you are coming forward with so many false pretenses that you don't even understand that what you're talking about is wrong. So Mr. Rosencrantz, while you are sitting here saying you understand, I really need you to understand that this air district got you excited, thinking this was good money that's coming to a school district to use in so many systematic ways that we know are the challenges of this district. We know that overall, this district serves populations outside of the 617 boundary, right? And so this money cannot be spent in a way that's going to prioritize your employees, because the moment you said seniority, that's got nothing to do with this money. These 6 buses are not going to be a part of your priority system because let's think about it. Let's break it down. A bus driver wants the cleanest bus. The bus driver wants the easiest route with the least potholes and the easiest kids to deal with. Those bus drivers may not be serving the students that I help raise in my district over here in in the 617 boundary, right? So it's just like we already see on so many other systematic inequalities within Fresno Unified when it comes to magnet schools. As it is, you bus in the white kids into Edison High School, just like old time segregation, but it's a modern day educational redlining. Those kids come in, they get put into the top 10 out of 10 part of Edison High School, while the students that came from the remedial elementary schools of West Fresno do not get the same education under that roof at Edison High. So to say that these buses, it's following the same systemic inequalities that we have seen for such a long time. So I do want to hear your presentations, but at the same time, you're moving forward in presentations that do not include at the front end what should have come from this steering committee. You guys don't understand what this steering committee and how it's different. It's not the same as just getting any other kind of grant that comes through your office to help you get new things at this district. This was very much earmarked in a very specific way that you are not aware of.
Real quick.
If I can just say this really quick, I absolutely understand we have to do something different with these buses. And that's why we're building special routes that will be tied to the buses. So drivers, regardless of where they're at, they are not going to be able to bid this route unless they're driving that bus. So we recognize that we are going to do something different with these buses to target those routes.
Yeah, and Ivanka, I really appreciate both Paul and Chris. They spent a lot of time with us in talking about, how these buses can be used to serve the students of the community. I mean, that's what all the conversations that we've been having is
Yes,
about.
Brian, they spent those conversations with you. You and I both know from the time Air District started this process, go back 5, 6 years, we had subcommittee meetings with the residents, with you, and with whoever that other agency is. Until the last time they showed up, and tonight, this community has not had conversations with them. We don't need you speaking on behalf of the community. The community is supposed to be engaged in those subcommittee meetings, which we have gotten away from. And this is one of those spaces that totally required a subcommittee, especially the fact that we have more money that needs to be reallocated. And it's possible that this committee might consider wanting that to be one of our options. So you can't just keep these conversations behind closed doors.
And that's not what we're trying to do. I mean, that's why we're here today with Paul, and they're talking about proposals. It's not, so ideally, yes, if Paul and Chris can kind of go through and share what they're working on and get the feedback from the community, that's why they are here tonight, and why we appreciate them putting in the effort and being here to share.
Absolutely. And I can tell you from my part, working with subcommittees is fantastic, because I'm very happy to have people sit right side by side with us and look at what we're doing and try to direct kind of how we're doing it. I do that with my own drivers right now. doing the regular routes. So I'm definitely open to that. We're starting now because the infrastructure just got done. So I think I share the frustration. I don't think it was actually mentioned, but I'm sure it's there. We've had these buses for a long time, and we haven't done anything special with them. We've been running them through the area. We've been using them for the summer programs in the area as much as we could, but we haven't really done anything different with them. And we weren't really able to do that until we had the charging infrastructure. So now that we have it, we're excited to start planning and doing something different and trying to figure out how we can utilize those buses specifically to serve the area.
Yeah, I think it'd be good, Paul, to bring up some of the maps and kind of show the communities how community members what you guys have been doing.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Absolutely.
And I'll just note, I saw Natalie, this is Liz, that your hand was up, and we will definitely come back to your question once we have a chance to look at some of these maps. And just want to emphasize that none of these are for sure going to happen. This is the Fresno Unified School District coming tonight to share some of the work that they have done to try to make sure that these buses are operating within the boundary. So we're here tonight to discuss some of these initial ideas, and if it is of interest to the CSC to have a subcommittee to continue these discussions, I think that is something that we can definitely plan on doing. So I'll pass it back to you, Paul and Chris.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Can you guys see my screen right now?
We can, Chris.
Yes.
Okay, so this is one of our maps, and this is actually one of our runs that are associated with Columbia and Sunset. They ride the bus together. This is one of our current runs that we're looking into prioritizing on our EV routes. I'm going to walk you through a couple more that we're kind of looking at in prioritizing and going from there. One of our school sites in that area is going to be Gaston Middle School. As you see, each run path is color coded. This means that we have several different routes or different runs that service that school site. So I believe we have 1, 2, 3. I believe we have four buses that currently serve Gaston in the AM and in the PM home to school. I'm gonna walk you through a couple more. We have let's see, Jefferson as well, another elementary. One of the ones that I wanted to kind of bring up, and I think this would be kind of a good way for us to prioritize some of our routes, would be on one of our Computech routes, and this is going to be, this right here shows several runs that are staying within our zone, slightly going out of it, but this is 3 different Computech Edison routes that are staying within our 617 zone that we're looking to prioritize on putting together routes. Other ones.
Chris, when you say prioritize, you're actually readjusting the routes and building routes that when the drivers bid, they will be bidding an e-bus route, correct?
Correct. Absolutely. We will be putting together routes where a driver would bid on it, and part of that bidding process is the driver would know that if they bid on this route, it comes with an EV bus. That way they know exactly what route they're bidding on, what vehicle the expectation is that you will be driving to transport for this specialized route.
Hey, Chris, can you show the Cooper route?
Correct. The AM?
Yeah. And so, I mean, when you were talking about magnet schools, it was more in lines of children within the AB 617 boundary that attend a magnet school outside.
Correct. Yeah. As you see this mapping right here, the school site that we're transporting for is going to be Cooper. Cooper is one of our magnet schools. Now, this is an AM route, so we will pick up at bus stops all along the boundary of students within that boundary, and we would transport them to our magnet school. So a part of our magnet schools is we're going to prioritize um, students that are being serviced within this boundary, even though it's a magnet school and the magnet school might be located outside of the boundary, but we will be picking up students that live within that boundary.
Now, absolutely true. We also pick up in the other area and bring them into Edison and into Cooper. So we recognize that, and that's something else that we're really talking about, tearing them apart and putting them back together to make sure that they come in through the area. That it's challenging. I think Chris is making it look easy right now with the maps, but there's definitely some routes that are just in full transparency. There are some routes that are very complicated because of the times. Chris, you want to talk a little bit, just very, very quickly, because I know we're running long, but very quickly about the times and the challenges that you got to work through. Because like you can't just do this tomorrow, but you're going to work through them. What are some of the challenges in putting these routes together, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the challenges are we have to work within the bell schedules. Generally, our routes are tiered to where AM and PM elementaries would be going in first. They would be going home first, along with our junior highs, followed by our magnet schools, and our high schools would be our later school sites going into school and also coming back. So that's kind of some of the challenges on how our routes are tiered based on logistics, where the school site's located, where they're going. So that's some of the things we will be looking into on how we can move some things around and to create and pair up these runs that service this area, these boundaries.
And so just to put a point on it, Chris, the first route, it's the same bus that does the elementary schools, and then that same bus then moves to a different route. So it's not like they're all going to be in the same area. They change schools, but one bus could do maybe 3 different routes.
That is correct, Paul.
In the
Normally,
same day.
normally most of our routes have 5 to 6 runs within that route. So you could have an elementary, a junior high, and then you can also have a magnet school that's attached in the morning, followed by kind of the same sequence in the PM as well. So that would be different school sites, bus picking up at different school sites and transporting them to school.
Thank you both. This is Liz, and I just want to elevate a question that came in from the chat from Ivanka. So she asked, why are we basing routes on magnet schools versus basing the routes on the schools in the 617 boundary only? So maybe you could clarify how you are selecting the routes if magnet schools are a main consideration, or what you're really using to make those decisions.
Right now, currently, the routes are built around the bell schedules and around the number of students we have in certain areas. So they will shift. If we have a lot of students in maybe going to one school, we got to pick them up in that area, and then that bus will have like a longer run without stops. There are other schools where we have multiple stops along the way. So it's not necessarily that we're building them around the magnet schools. Magnet schools are part of the middle day. It's part of the time. So the first kind of circle that the bus does is a route for elementary schools. They're the ones that start earliest. And then we can drop them off. And then we have the next start time, which includes the magnet schools. Chris, magnet schools are same bell schedule as the high schools, or a little bit, are they part of the middle day?
a little bit later. Most of our magnet schools will be we drop off at 8:50 in the morning, and they depart to go back home after 3 o'clock. Anywhere from about 3:30 to 3:40 are our normal magnet schools departure times. And the reason and why that kind of plays into this, magnet schools are not we're not prioritizing them. We're not building routes around our magnet schools. It's just the way that they're tiered because of their later start time, because of their later departure. That allows us to kind of pair up our earlier schools, our elementary, our junior highs, and then at that point it would be the high schools and it would be the magnet schools thereafter.
One piece of information I'll share, some of the studies that really stress the importance of transitioning and having kids on electric buses was that the majority of exposure to pollutants happen to the kids that are while they're riding the buses. It's not while they're waiting for the school buses. It's riding on it. So, if kids are on the bus for a longer period of time, that's more exposure. So in some instances, by having kids from the AB 617 that travel further distances, if they're on a bus that's an EV, that's less exposure that they're going to be experiencing. And like I said, that's some of the studies that CARB had published and had put on their website showed that in some cases it was like, I forget, it was like the most significant portion of the pollution exposure happened to kids on school buses for the day. And so I think that's another consideration.
Absolutely. And I think our absolutely our focus isn't to continue to try to push and service our magnet schools in this area. If we can put together some routes or some runs and utilize the EV buses and not have to utilize a magnet school, that is definitely something that we will look into seeing if we can provide services that way. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to prioritize or target everything around our magnet schools. But my team will be analyzing our runs that service this region in trying to establish some routes on that.
And it just to wrap it up, I want to kind of reiterate, this is the beginning of our program. I mean, what you guys have done for us, you've given us the foundation of the program, but we're hoping to go as much as maybe like 20 more buses, like 15 buses in the next few years. And I think the knowledge, being able to hear your community and see how impacted this is, that information and that knowledge that as we're learning about it is that will inform what we do with the other buses, whether they're funded by the Air Board or not. There's other grants that might fund those buses, but regardless of where they're funded, I think we're kind of committed to the area and we see where the need is.
Thank you both. We can go to our last hand from Natalie before we close out this item.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Paul. Thank you for your presentation. I think I just wanted to really echo what Ivanka shared. I think being in this committee, I think what we're looking for is transparency and this being a collaborative process. Like, I think it's important for at least Fresno Unified to understand that when, the state passed the law, AB 617, it was to reduce pollution specifically in areas like South Central Fresno that are areas where a lot of industry it's concentrated. A lot of folks experience a lot more negative health outcomes. And I think when, just taking this money means a commitment to working with this committee and working with the community. And I think I just wanted to echo just the need for a subcommittee I think especially with a SERP like this, it's really sensitive, right? Because these are students who are living, they grow up and they lived in the area for so long. So I think they should be at the forefront of receiving these benefits, right? Compared to students that don't live in the area and get bused in. And I think just one thing I would like to know is like what routes are actually picking up more kids that are already in the area, right? Buses that are operating within the South Fresno area, like exactly how many kids are they picking up? Because I'm thinking about like the idling that comes up with pickup and drop off, and I feel like if we're you having like a bus that stays within the boundary, like that reduces exposure already, right? Because we're not allowing a bus that's using a polluting engine to idle. So I think having that EV option is especially important. Um, and I think another thing that I was just really just wanted to push for again was that subcommittee. I think this is a SERP that really needs a space for a lot of community to provide their input. Um, yeah, but taking this money really does mean a commitment to the CEC and to, a lot of the students in the South Fresno boundary. And I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, that's some very good points, especially about the idling. So thank you.
This is Liz. Thank you, Natalie, and appreciate you bringing us back to the point about the subcommittee. I do just want to maybe test that with the group to see if that is something we would like to put on the action item tracker, to make some steps towards putting that subcommittee meeting together and continue these conversations. I see a couple thumbs up. I know, Natalie, you also expressed a desire for that, so I think we will go ahead and put that on our action item tracker. Yes, I see lots of thumbs up, so definitely a lot of interest from our CSC members in joining that subcommittee. So we will add that to the tracker, and I will just close out this item by thanking Chris and Paul from Fresno Unified for joining tonight and, really taking in all of this feedback and the passion that the community brings to these issues. We look forward to continuing to work with you and having more of these conversations and building some trust together. So thank you.
Well, and just right quick, if we're going to do a subcommittee, kind of my request would be that we have some time shoulder to shoulder together in the same room, so they can ask all the questions and not be rushed, and we can really kind of get into it, look at the challenges, have some ideas, share ideas, kind of back and forth is super helpful in the subcommittees, not maybe a little bit more than just a Teams meeting. We're willing to do that.
For sure. Thank you. And I think I'm seeing in the chat we might have just one last question from, is that Nayamin?
Yeah, although I'm forgetting the protocols. Natalie is representing CCGN, so I'm not sure if I have to wait until the end for public comment. So it's perfectly fine if I'm not allowed to. I have a question, but I can wait.
Yeah, we
You
basically
can,
said that we take comments from the public after all the CSC members have had an opportunity to speak on an item. So you're good now, I mean.
Okay, thank you. And this is a question maybe that can, be addressed in that subcommittee meeting. So, similar to what Natalie asked, I was just wondering, like, there's so many elementary schools inside the area, like, well, no, Bampao is Bampao Elementary. I don't know, the one that is has Leavenworth. I mean, there's several that come to mind. So I was just curious if you had thought of including or going and taking those into consideration because it would be, I imagine, easier to find routes that are going to stay within the area versus others that are more on the kind of the edges. So just wanted to know if that is a consideration.
I mean, we're kind of going to consider everything. We know that we have to do something different than we've done in the past. This is a new opportunity for us. So there's nothing off the table right now. We have open minds and we're trying to put a good proposal and a good project together for you guys. and for our students.
Yeah, and I think like in terms of like elementary, like I didn't understand this about it, like the different bands that you had. Like, okay, elementary schools, they all start at a certain time, and so you create bus routes for that time period. And with the 6 buses, I I, I didn't ask this before, so I don't know for sure, but to me, you were developing routes that would cover elementary schools within the boundary for that like first run. Then you were kind of looking at, okay, the next time period that schools start, when can we get those next bus routes? And then looking at the routes within or the schools that could serve in that next time period within the boundary, then kind of moving up, based on the later start times, and then kind of at the end of the day, working backwards off that.
That's right.
Absolutely.
This is Amy. Ivanka, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Rosencrantz, I have a question. You don't have to have the answer right now, and possibly we can discuss this in the subcommittee meeting. How much was the cost for the infrastructure the EV infrastructure? If you don't know that off the top of the head, that's fine, but that could play an important part in moving forward.
Yeah, I'll have that exact answer ready for you. That was also grant funded. So let me get back to you on that. I don't want to be
That's fine.
give the wrong information, but I'll definitely have that ready.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul and Chris.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Let me go back to sharing my screen. All right, everybody can see it? Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that kind of going back and wanting to understand where we're at with different things and kind of timelines of things. So when the program first started, the idea was to, if there was incentive measures that within 5 years that the district would be contracted and all those things would be funded. Obviously, a whole host of things happened that delayed that process. And so, initially we extended it 1 year. So last year we had the same kind of conversation about needing to expend the funds, the goal being February 2026. I think there's still some challenges. And so now we're looking to push the date to try to fully execute and fund all that thing to the end of 2027. When the district accepts the incentive funds, there are timelines associated with expending those funds, and we're constantly trying to meet those and holding the money back to make sure that it's available for the CERP measures, for the different CERPs that have been adopted by the district. And but there are definitely timelines that it has to get expended. And so we want to be upfront with everybody. The date for that's going to be February 2027. So as we over the next 365 days, that's what we're working towards to spend that last chunk of funding. As I shared in some of the other slides, we've spent a lot of the funding, but there's still some pretty large buckets that we haven't been successful in spending that funding. So some of the measures that we're not seeing any traction with, not seeing any movement with, that we would recommend looking for opportunities to reallocate that funding. Rail cars, movers, and switchers. These are not the long haul pieces of equipment. These are they're locomotive engines that are used in much smaller spaces, and so they pretty much stay within the area. We were successful in doing one with one company within the boundary, and we've reached out to others that have them, and for a whole host of reasons, there's not the desire or opportunity to move forward with that. We still have $2 million remaining of locomotive funding that when we first adopted the CERP, we said we were going to remove that $4 million that we had initially allocated because of the understanding that the majority of those emissions didn't happen within the boundary. So we're still looking for opportunities to move that. Charging plugs for trucks. This was a technology that, when we were developing the SERP, it was still something that's being considered. But now 6 years later, it's not this was about plugging in trucks on the sides of roads so they wouldn't have to run their engines. They could run off electricity. And it's just not something that that technology did not take off. And lastly is EV mechanic training. And this is for a different reason. The community college within the boundary actually has developed a program that's doing, is having a lot of success, and it's running great, and it has a really great EV mechanic component to that training. And being a part of the community college system, it's free for people. So that's a really positive development. So as I mentioned, that these are opportunities that we just haven't seen a lot of interest for. A lot of the measures had significant emission reductions associated with them that now we're facing a shortfall. When we all worked together on identifying measures, there was emissions reductions associated with those. And things like the locomotive and the switchers, when we put those in, they had large emission reductions associated with them. And so, by not being able to move forward with those, we definitely don't want to see a huge shortfall in emission reductions that we're getting because of the health benefits associated with getting those emission reductions. So when we're considering things, we want to ideally find things that are going to find significant emission reductions. The other major impact that I'm sure a lot of you are aware of is just what happened at the federal level with some of the state measures that were accounted for in the expected emission reductions in the community. And because some of the things that the state had proposed have now since been nullified by actions that have been taken at the federal level, that's just another unfortunate situation where, those needed emission reduction benefits aren't going to happen within the timeframes that we were looking at. And so just kind of re-emphasizes the importance of finding measures that are going to get emission reductions. And so we're still working with CARB to fully understand what those impacts are. It's a very complicated situation. I know CARB is been working on this very diligently, very hard to understand what those impacts look like. So the last bucket was our opportunity to shift funding. This is kind of the last thing. We talked about it last time was agricultural equipment, such as tractors. This is something that doesn't have regulatory requirements, to replace equipment. It's pieces of equipment that we know operate quite a bit. And, some of the equipment, especially around the Fresno area, there's a lot of smaller farmers with really older tractor equipment that, if we were to provide funding, we could see some of those being taken out of service with newer equipment that generate a lot less air pollution. And then, part of the reason why we meet with you to talk about this is, seeking advice on things that we're not thinking of. And so that there's still an opportunity for that. So kind of just what I talked about, before, there's just a lot of emission reductions associated with tractors. Some of these we already shared with you. So this is what it looks like in terms of applications that we have right now for tractor replacement. We had a very successful program. There's no more funding for it from the state level. And so these are applications that currently would not be funded. And, we were looking for things that we would be able to do quickly to get emission reductions within the community. So in terms of emission reductions and benefits, this is what we would see from this if we were to propose funding some of these. Based on the numbers of applications that we have within these different areas. And so we had what we call the emission reduction benefit zone because as you're all familiar, the emissions that just get generated don't just stay within that one area. They do move along with the air. And so, if we get emission reductions from just slightly outside the boundary, those emission reduction benefits are seen within the boundary. And so, we have 16 projects within the boundary that if we were to get emission or funded, we would get about 33 tons of NOx, almost 2 tons of PM, a significant portion of that, which is diesel particulate matter, which is known to be one of the most carcinogenic compounds. And then about, nearly 5 tons of VOC emissions. And so, as you can see, it's just a lot of emissions associated with these different pieces of equipment. So this is trying to show that if we were to reallocate some of these fundings, how this would fill in some of the shortfalls that we're expecting from some of those other measures not being able to be completed. When we all got together in those first meetings, the goal was to identify ways to reduce emissions. Like I said, understanding how much that means in terms of better health outcomes for the people living in the communities, and we definitely want to meet that and think of ways how to do that. Ideally, yeah, we could have gotten everybody into electric trucks and electric locomotives and electric switchers, and but unfortunately, that's not the reality of what we're looking at right now. But if we were to look at something like tractors, that would go a long way towards helping us get a lot closer to what we expected in the beginning and what we hoped for. I think everything was aspirational, and so I think these images always help kind of tell the story on what we're talking about. So with if we were to look at replacing 60 tractors, that'd be 120 tons of emissions reduced. For the CERP, we spent $6.4 million. If we were to have done 82 school buses from that, we would get 19 tons of emission reductions. So about 10 times less than what we'd see from the tractors. $8.1 million for vehicles was in the CERP. It would take 12,616. That would replace 12,616 cars, and from that you would get 3.7 tons of emission reductions. And then for lawnmowers, 547,121 gets you 0.4 tons of emission reductions. Now, this isn't to say those other things aren't really important, because they are. We've talked a lot about localized emission reductions. Your neighbor using a 50-year-old lawnmower, that's a lot of emissions that get generated right in that area where people are living, where children are playing, where people's parents are, and so those are needed emission reductions to protect localized air quality, prevent single episodes. Like that could be the difference between your neighbor having or not having an asthma attack that day. So those are very important, and those are cumulative benefits. And so I think it's important to continue to look at those types of things and look to fund them. It's just in comparison to some of these other opportunities, there's just a lot more emission reductions that you can get that overall will have a significant impact in improving air quality in the boundary. So it's kind of the same thing that we shared here. Just in terms of volume, in order to get, yeah, that last slide threw me off because those numbers were wrong, obviously. And it should have been the numbers in red should have been on that last slide, so I apologize. In order to get to the same level of emission reductions, this tells you how many you would have to spend and how many dollars it would take in order to get the same level of emissions from these different things. So in order to get the same emissions reductions as $6 million for tractors, it would be $40 million in buses, $263 million for electric vehicles, and $274 million for lawnmowers. So really, really big differences. So the way that we were getting to the 5.9, we had identified some measures as kind of a starting point for discussion. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong slide. On this slide, we're talking about historically, we've done a lot in terms of reallocating funding. And this isn't common. What you've done in terms of providing input, providing recommendations to reallocate funding in your SERP, really is the kind of standard and is the example that other air districts across the state have looked to do since. And so, the Valley community steering committees have really played a huge part in identifying where funding should go, where it would be most beneficial. Based on what we're seeing with the different programs. This is the slide I was talking about earlier, where we identified these are from that bucket 2 that we talked about earlier. That if we were to consider moving funds, these would be things that we would recommend as good starting points for that. So kind of go into the different reasons. I kind of covered them as I went through them earlier, but these different measures, we've experienced challenges in not seeing interest from the people that we've been reaching out to and talking to about it, or the steering committee let us know that they didn't have interest in moving forward with those measures. So we recently had a great opportunity to go out to the new community college campus and tour it and see the equipment. I don't know if anybody else has been out to tour the campus. If not, I think it's a great opportunity. We can definitely reach out to them and see what ability they would have. But it is an exciting program to teach the children in the boundary, a future career, in this advancing area, and learn a valuable skill that will lead to hopefully a really great career that serves them well. So this was the recommendation. Now I heard that some ideas about wanting to get together a subcommittee to talk more about this. What we would recommend would be to consider shifting funding from the category 2 measures that we weren't seeing the movement to support tractor replacements that will benefit the Fresno community. So at this point, I'll stop, and I see several hands going up and look to have a conversation.
Thank you, Ryan. I will just note that we are approaching 7:30 and do want to be respectful of everyone's time, but I know that this is a very important conversation to continue, so we will get through everybody. And first, I know a lot of comments came in through the chat, and according to our protocol, we will read them out loud for the record before we get to the hands. from Ivanka, the Air District Board will love to have AB 617 funds go to ag and farming incentives outside of the boundary, but how does that support this community? It doesn't. Subcommittee, please. So hearing what you mentioned, Ryan, a desire for more space to have these discussions. Another comment from Nyameen. Ryan, you just said that kids who ride in diesel buses are exposed to more pollution, so it would be better to have more clean buses because the children riding on those buses would see a direct impact in their health versus the tractors. Also, I know the AB 617 area like the back of my hand. There are hardly any farms inside the area. The few that I could remember near Vitro Glass were removed. Plus, I think farmers should buy those tractors with their own money or with the other incentives that you offer. And then a last comment from Ivanka. You identified some measures. We, as the CSC, did not identify these measures for these reallocations. Definitely hear all of your concerns, and we can go to the hands now, starting with Ivanka.
Thank you. CSC members, I would like to take a vote on this and that we have a subcommittee. We are not approving these allocation suggestions that were made tonight. We need a subcommittee meeting to discuss more creative opportunities and ways to spend this money. Done.
I second.
I also support that notion of creating a subcommittee to discuss other ways of how we could actually brainstorm programs our community wants to see instead of just funding ag tractor replacements. Like we know that in AB 617 boundary, like the farms are not a problem. It's the heavy industry, it's the heavy duty truck traffic, it's the concentration of a bunch of freeways in the boundary. And it's important to target specifically those emissions. And I think another thing I did want to share too is that when I feel like there's a common pattern of the air district presenting options to us and instead of us presenting options to the air district. And I think it's just this repetitive process of doing this. And I really feel like the air district needs to allow community to lead, specifically in the space, to see the changes that we want to see. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Liz, and I did hear a motion to vote, and I think that for something like this, proposing a subcommittee, we do not need a formal vote, and I think that that's something we can add to our action items and have some commitment from the Air District to host those subcommittees for you all.
Yeah, and then we're open to having that subcommittee. And Natalie, if I kind of go back to that one slide.
I know the tons.
No. Sorry, Malcolm, that's not what I'm talking about. Right here. It was part of that subcommittee. I mean, I would hope and look forward to hearing ideas and suggestions on ways in which you think we'd be able to get those emission reductions. We're always open, and we want to get that feedback. If there's specific things that that we're not considering or thinking about that are going to help fill that shortfall, we're very open-minded. I think the thought would be to look to have those quickly because, like I said, a year, as we know, goes by quickly.
Thank you, Ryan. And just before we get to your hand, Dr. Curry, I just want to clarify because I see a comment in the chat about a vote to reject the proposal presented by the Air District. I just wanted to clarify that tonight is not about decision making. So what Ryan is sharing is just a proposal and not something that we're going to make any decisions about tonight. So we can go to Dr. Curry next.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just also support the idea of a subcommittee to look at reallocation of funds. And I'm really remembering that early on in this process, the idea of only offering incentives as a way for us to engage industries that we knew were structural and were larger and would provide the larger reduction in emissions was really something that we all had concerns about. So I'm not saying I told you so. I'm saying that this was kind of an expected outcome, given that we were only offering incentives and it was always voluntary. It would still be voluntary, but we didn't put in place a lot of other options, or we didn't go down the pathway of what else could we do. And so we've lost that moment, I think, where the incentives might have been coupled with these folks' ability to get other funds. And so now we are sitting at this place where we're looking at this big gap in the reduction of emissions, and we don't have a lot of tools. And so in order to address where we are now and also to move forward, I think the subcommittee is the most reasonable way, and also the process that's most aligned with the intent of AB 617 in its goal to have community participation. So yeah, I just think we have fewer options, but we still have some, and the community should certainly be a part of providing interesting and community-based ideas. So.
Thank you, Dr. Curry. Definitely hear you. And it sounds like there is commitment from the Air District to hold these spaces outside of these CSC meetings, to have these more in-depth conversations where they can really listen to the ideas that the community is going to bring forward. And appreciate you all staying on a little late. And I think we're not going to have time for our standing updates tonight. So we can move to wrapping up our meeting. I just wanted to quickly share our next meeting date, and I'll just share my screen so you all can see. Since we are meeting quarterly, our next CSC meeting will be on May 13th, currently via Zoom, though I think that is a potential conversation to be had about whether the CSC would like to have a meeting in person in May or sometime in the near future for one of our next meetings. And I will stop sharing my screen and just want to officially wrap us up for tonight.
Liz, this is Amy. I just want to clarify, just because of time, we won't be reading the action items aloud, but we do have two action items noted, and that is the formation of these two separate subcommittee meetings. So we will anticipate that in the follow-up email communication, you'll get a summary of the action items, a summary of the standing items that we would have had to listen to today, but you'll get them via email. And then you'll hear directly from the Air District, probably from Nancy, about scheduling those subcommittee meetings. So to appreciate, oh, it looks like my internet cut out.
Oh, sorry.
So sorry, you all froze for me. So you will hear an email, or you will receive a follow-up from Nancy, likely from the Air District, to schedule those subcommittee meetings. And as Ryan from the Air District mentioned earlier, we do want to make sure that those meetings happen pretty quickly so that you all can provide your input. And also as a reminder, since it seems like we're a little rusty on the rules of engagement per your charter, those subcommittee meetings will be a great time for everyone to provide their input and share recommendations. But then you all have elected to have the voting process happen in the actual CSC. So the final decision will happen here in the meeting with everyone present, so we can take an official vote on the record. And in addition to that, there are some items that were recommended for future meetings, items that were recommended by you all through the previous action item tracker, things like ensuring that topics include like comprehensive urban greening and vegetative barriers updates, more updates based on your input on the air monitoring and potentially stationary source discussion, and of course, continuing these budget updates. And then in addition to that, we don't want to forget that at the last Zoom meeting that we had, we definitely want to hear an update from the Air District and CARB about how the work will be sustained beyond the 5-year implementation. So there's a lot of agenda items that have been proposed. So just recognizing that, the fiscal year comes to an end June 30th. So there will be definitely an opportunity for there to be an in-person meeting to happen soon.
Hi, this is Eric.
Hi,
Question?
Eric. Yeah.
Yes. So I guess my question really centers around, you know, relative to the SERP and the recommendations that have come back to the committee on a few different occasions, and at the disposition of the committee, we have rejected the SERP recommendations that staff have brought forward, but those same recommendations come back either similar or modified, but not at the will of what the committee has discussed and what the committee has recommended. And so what I hear you saying is, well, if the committee is proposing a subcommittee to have further conversations about this particular issue, just know that when you have your general body meeting, that you will still need to vote on it and it would need to be an action item. So I guess for clarity, um, is it just like how? Because the same thing kind of, it's repetition, right? Like it just keeps coming back to us. We keep voting it down. And we're trying to, I think, overall as a committee, trying to bring resolve to the confusion that staff has about where the committee is with the SERP, and we're continuing to lose time because now you've given us like a June deadline. And so I guess, so staff has the greatest amount of clarity. Would you like a recommendation now from us and we just discuss the item now?
So maybe I'll cover that. Eric, I mean, we've talked about this in the past. Once we get past 7:30, I think it's like to take any action, since it's not like a meeting was scheduled for a certain time, I don't think that's, at least that's where we landed in the past. I don't know if, things have changed, but, it was, once we get past the meeting end time, it was, table any action until, the next meeting.
Thanks, Ryan, for clarifying. This is Amy. And the other piece of clarification, Eric, I thank you for the question. I appreciate it. There's a few things that I heard in there. And one of them is not to slow down the process, but to make it inclusive, is that in the subcommittee meetings, since not everyone can attend those meetings, the idea is that those meetings are a working meeting so that Air District staff that are, to your point, are crafting these plans and implementation plans are hearing the request of those that are the members that are in those meetings. And then you all officially as a committee on record get to vote on those here. So it may very well be the same discussion. I understand that. But just given that the subcommittee meetings aren't sort of mandatory for everyone to attend, and it's sometimes really difficult to find a time that works for everyone, those the actual official vote would happen here. So I hope that provides some clarity. And then my June comment wasn't necessarily a deadline. It's more like for you to be thinking about giving the Air District feedback about when you want to have that in-person meeting. I did see in the chat, Nayamin commented potentially having that in-person happen in May. I think when Nancy sends that email communication, or the Air District sends the communication, it'd be really helpful to hear from you all when would be the best time for you all to meet in person, so that you can have a time to allocate to have those discussions happen when everyone's in person together.
Gotcha.
So thank you for helping us provide some clarity on that process. So those two action items are noted. And for now, I know it feels like we're not having any closure for today's meeting because we're sort of wrapping us up because we did go over 9 minutes and really appreciate everyone staying on. I think just like other meetings, really appreciate your time and want to make sure that when the Air District does do the follow-up, that we can definitely reach out to you and get any other feedback that you have, whether it be about this voting process, engagement process, or the actual CERT measures. So for now, we're going to go ahead and conclude tonight's meeting and do expect to have that one-on-one follow-up for all of the CSC members that are here tonight. And those that aren't here, right? So we take attendance and we are seeing that, there's a good proportion of folks that aren't here today. So hopefully we can also talk about how to do some outreach to those folks and ensure that they're joining the meetings and having their voices heard as well. So thank you very much. I hope everyone has a restful evening, and we will be in touch via email communication. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.